Although electric cars were actually more popular than cars with an internal combustion engine as they were more comfortable to ride in, they declined because cars fueled by petrol increased in importance. However, because of economic reasons and environmental motivations, nowadays there is renewed interest in electricity as a means of powering road vehicles.
People differ greatly in all aspects of what is casually known as intelligence. The differences are apparent not only in school, from kindergarten to college, but also in the most ordinary circumstances, in the words people use and comprehend, in the differing abilities to read a map or follow directions, or in their capacities for remembering telephone numbers or figuring change. The variations in these specific skills are so common that they are often taken for
The product life cycle has 4 very clearly defined stages, including the introduction stage, the growth stage, the maturity stage and the decline stage, each with its characteristics that mean different things for businesses that are trying to manage the life cycle of their particular products.
With early silent movies often accompanied by live piano or organ music, audiences captivated by the experience of watching moving pictures on the silver screen, and it wasn't until 1923 that a synchronized soundtrack was photographically recorded and printed onto the side of the strip of motion picture film and made it onto a commercially distributed movie, and the first movie theaters were called Nickelodeons.
While India might have absolute advantage in providing both computer programming and innovative new technologies because of the low cost, the United States has a comparative advantage in technology innovation because of easier capital obtaining, which suggests that Indian programmers will do more and more of what US programmers have been doing in the past, and American firms will shift to more and more innovation. A miner in Mexico found a tiny tree frog preserved in amber for 25 million years, which would be the first of its kind found in Mexico, with a few other preserved frogs found in chunks of amber, and Carbot would like to extract a sample from the frog's remains to find DNA that could identify the particular species, but the owner may not allow it. There are several reasons that contribute to a rise in crime rate, including those businesses do not report crimes against themselves for fear of lowering their public image, that citizens have no incentive to tell police if they become victims, a new policing policy, the enactment of a new range of offenses or the possibility of committing old offenses in a new way, and the way that criminal statistics are compiled by the Home Office.
Banks provide short-term finance to companies in the form of an overdraft, with the advantage of flexibility, and the most obvious example is farming, but the main disadvantages of an overdraft are that it is repayable on demand and the interest payable on overdrafts is variable because when interest rates increase, the cost of the overdraft increases. We can't see it, but brains hum with electrical activity. Brain waves created by the coordinated firing of huge collections of nerve cells pinball around the brain. The waves can ricochet from the front of the brain to the back, or from deep structures all the way to the scalp and then back again. Called neuronal oscillations, these signals are known to accompany certain mental states. Quiet alpha waves ripple soothingly across the brains of meditating monks. Beta waves rise and fall during intense conversational turns. Fast gamma waves accompany sharp insights.
Assessment is a central process in education and a bridge between teaching and learning, as many students do not learn what they are taught because they have reached different understandings of the material being studied, but assessment is also used for other purposes in education, such as assessments of the performance of students, and also to decide which kinds of education students should receive.
Soil, containing so many organisms, combines with minerals, water, air and organic matter to create a living system for all life, which reduces the risk of flooding, mitigates agricultural emissions, increases disease resistance in livestock and ultimately drives profits for farmers. But soil and its impact on the health of our animals has been one of the most neglected links in UK agriculture because they use fertilizers, which has a detrimental effect on the land. The extraordinary flying ability of dandelion seeds is possible thanks to a form of flight that has not been seen before in nature, research has revealed. The discovery, which confirms the common plant among the natural world's best flyers, shows that movement of air around and within its parachute-shaped bundle of bristles enables seeds to travel great distances, often a kilometer or more, kept afloat entirely by wind power.
People have evolved to sleep much less because humans' ancestors descended from the trees to sleep on the ground, having to spend more time awake to guard against predators, and another feature may reflect intense pressure humans face to learn and teach new skills and to make social connections. As sleep declined, rapid eye movement took on an outsized role, but REM has been linked to learning and memory.
The reasons why you must let the land rest if you hope to continue farming there in the long run, which is letting the field go fallow, are that this allows the land to replenish many of its nutrients, the root networks of various grasses or ground covers have a chance to expand and grow, and there are many beneficial flora and microfauna.
While double-blind is a virtue of clinical trials because it rules out the potential confounding influences of patients' and physician beliefs. Viewing double-blind trial as necessarily superior is problematic because it leads to the paradox that effective experimental treatments will not be supportable by the best evidence, but claims treatments are effective is highly testable and intuitively they should receive greater support from the evidence than do claims about treatments with moderate effects. The brain doesn't see the world simply as though the scene was projected onto a cinema screen because the image that we see with our eyes is broken down into separate color components and other components. Each of these component parts is sent to a separate area of the brain for processing, with the different components of the scene only merging again when they are unified into what you perceive as the image. The National Oceanography Center (NOC) is engaged in research into the potential risks and benefits of exploiting deep-sea mineral resources. An NOC also led an international study demonstrating deep-sea nodule mining will cause long-lasting damage to deep-sea life, so it aimed at informing that decisions need to be taken as people increasingly turn to the oceans to address some of society's greatest challenges.
Earl Miller is among the neuroscientists amassing evidence that waves are an essential part of how the brain operates. Brain oscillations deftly route information in a way that allows the brain to choose which signals in the world to pay attention to and which to ignore, his recent studies suggest. More recently, however, most psychologists have begun to embrace a more balanced view, one in which nature and nurture interact in cognitive development. During the past few decades, studies in genetics have pointed to a substantial role for heredity in molding the components of intellect, and researchers have even begun to track down the genes involved in cognitive function. These findings do not refute the notion that environmental factors shape the learning process. Instead, they suggest that differences in people's genes affect how easily they learn.
Although the implicit of sustainable development is that the old pattern of development which was driven by innovation and led to huge improvements could not be sustained, we assume that society remains static and we can understand the needs of the future, which means that sustainability paradigm fails to recognize that the way we live today couldn't be predicted and placed limits on human ingenuity, so we need to question these assumptions.